This is Happiness Solved with America's happiness coach, Sandee Scarlatta.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I am so happy you're here. So I recently had an amazing opportunity to talk about this topic on live TV. And I think that it's a timely thing to start my podcast with. And it's basically reset and de-stress. So, stress is still a huge factor in today's world. And it is such a major problem that is affecting people both mentally and physically. According to the American Psychological Association, stress affects all systems of the body. That's right. Every major system of our body, it can be affected by stress. Now, WebMD reported that 43% of all adults suffer adverse health effects from stress, like high blood pressure, skin conditions, depression, and anxiety. And 75 to 90% of all doctor's office visits are for stress-related ailments and complaints. That number is staggering. So I always like to say, at any time during the day, you can press the reset button, right? And reset your day, just like you reboot your computer when it's not functioning properly. So here are my 5 tips to reset your day and help you reduce stress. Step 1 is exercise, right? Exercise is going to raise your endorphins. It's going to get your heart rate up, and that is going to help you reduce your stress. So take a walk in nature, dance to your favorite music, ride a bike, anything that you enjoy doing is going to help reduce your stress. Step 2, gratitude. Every day when you wake up, make a list of everything you have to be grateful for. And at any time during the day when you need to reset your day, focus on your blessings and feel its loving embrace. You will be amazed at how quickly you will feel better. Tip 3, deep breathing. All you need to do is take 10 slow, deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. Okay? This is also an amazing way to reduce your anxiety. Tip number 4, grounding or earthing. So this just simply means taking off your shoes outside and feeling the grass or the earth beneath your feet, right? This is energizing and balancing for your emotions. So imagine yourself walking on the beach, if you've ever experienced that, right? The sun's shining, you've got a breeze blowing, you hear the sound of the ocean, but what's really happening is that your feet are touching the earth. That's why it feels so great. So just take off your shoes and walk on the grass. You don't have to go to the beach. And the last step, number 5, is trust. Learn to trust that everything is going to work out exactly as it's supposed to, right? It always does. And I always like to add to that, if you can control a situation, then there's nothing to worry about because you have control over it. If you can't control a situation, then there's no need to worry about it because it's something that is completely out of your control. So I hope you enjoyed these tips, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Today's guest is Sharon Hughes. Sharon is an author, life coach, and has a story you're not going to want to miss. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, Sharon. It's so great to have you here today on the show. How's it going?
Oh, it's going so well. Thank you so much, Sandee, for having me.
Oh, well, you sound like you have a very compelling story. So I want to hear all about that. But where are you from?
I'm in Southern California, just right between Orange County and Los Angeles.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast. So we have just extremely hot and humid weather here. And it's once you get into July and August, it's not that fun to be here. So you have a book, which is a very compelling title called The Girl in the Garage, 3 Steps to Letting Go of Your Past. And it was an Amazon #1 release. So congratulations for that. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So I want to hear about this story.
Oh, gosh, Sandee, where do I start? The story, The Girl in the Garage, it's kind of really an unusual story. It's the way the book is written is so that you see my story as if I'm telling you over coffee. and this happened. And I'm explaining the journey of how thought patterns take place, these things that we believe about ourselves that aren't necessarily true. In most cases, they're not true.
Exactly.
But then the rest of the book is a workbook, and I also share my faith journey. And it's a short book. I wrote it that way because so many people are looking for self-help books. They need a breakthrough, but they don't want to read an encyclopedia-sized book to get their breakthrough. So it's really tiny. You can read it in a weekend, and it takes you really, really deep. It is the hard, messy work of deciding what you're going to believe about yourself and what you're not. So the reason why the book is called The Girl in the Garage is because for many, many years, I had all kinds of abuse. I had a very dysfunctional family and had unsavory characters such as babysitters' husbands and babysitters' sons, and just different people abused me. But it culminated when I was 16 and I went to a Halloween party and I was handed a red cup, and you know where this is going. What's very interesting is I wasn't handed the drink from a guy. It was actually the guy I went to this party with. His sister handed me the cup. I don't know who poured the drink. I don't know if this was supposed to be a joke or whatever it was, but I took a few sips. I went into the bathroom. I was adjusting my Halloween costume, and immediately I thought, I'm so tired. I just need to lay on the floor for a minute. And I woke up 7 hours later in a garage, and I was being assaulted. So that was kind of the nail in the coffin of everything else that had happened to me in my life. And it wasn't even so much what happened in the garage. It was what happened when I got home. So for those folks out there that have kids, you have a 16-year-old daughter that's showing up at about 4:30 in the morning. How many people lock the front door and turn off the porch light and just think you're on your own, girl?
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I'm good.
That's just horrible. That's horrible.
It is. But you know what? It turned out really good in the end. So spoiler alert, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have written this great book to be helping other people. But I had to knock on the door, and my mom came, and, she opened the door and she let me in, and she just looked at me. She didn't say, where have you been? What happened? Are you okay? Nothing. And it was never spoken about. So there was no one safe to tell what had happened to me. And I tried to just continue on putting my life together as best I could, but always believing that I was the throwaway. And
oh my gosh, I'm going to cry.
I'll pass you a Kleenex.
Yeah.
But that belief, even at 16, I had already believed that I was kind of there for the taking. So this was just furthering that belief system. And really, it wasn't until I got into probably my 40s and I started looking into personal development and that type of thing, and started closing. I had an international wholesale business, and I was closing that business, and I had decided I wanted to be a life coach. And that's kind of like a whole other story. I was doing entrepreneurial events for women, and I just thought, I want to help women, because I had done all these really amazing things. Like, it's kind of crazy to think that I had such dysfunction, but I did everything from being a swimwear model and being on the cover of a magazine to having that home decor line, which was in numerous magazines. I had all these successes, but underneath it all, I was incredibly broken. So I thought, hey, I'm going to do these events for women. But God had another plan, and he started preparing me to pivot, because back then I would have never told this story. And so long story short is now here I am. I'm extremely healed, very removed from it. And I know now with all of my being that this is my calling and purpose, is to empower other women that have believed that they weren't enough and that they were there for the taking, and all the other crappy lies that they believe.
Right. Because we all have them.
Yes, we do.
And when you're a teenager, we're so impressionable.
Mm-hmm.
And when people, I know for me, I was so skinny because I was a figure skater, and I was made wrong for it.
Mm.
And so my whole life, I believed that it's a horrible thing to be thin.
Mm-hmm.
And you start, I started gaining weight. And to this day, I don't allow myself to get too thin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at I pretty much stay at my ideal weight, but I could, look better, but I won't let myself go there.
Yeah.
There's a stigma attached to it for me.
Yeah.
And that's crazy, right?
It is really crazy. It was about 5 or 6 years ago, and I was really in the thick of doing the work on myself. I remember laying in bed one morning and I was praying and I said, I am not going to make it. Lord, there's just no way. I just thought, really, if I wasn't here, would it even matter? And I thought, of course, oh yeah, my kids, they'd be upset. But in my mind, I started thinking they'd probably be okay. They'd cry for a while and maybe on Mother's Day or my birthday, they'd be sad, but they'd probably be okay. I started rationalizing all this stuff. And I was just like, I'm really not going to make it through all this. And I heard God say to me, what are you believing about yourself? No one had ever asked me that. I had been in some counseling on and off. But when you go to counseling and you sit there and somebody asks you these odd questions and they just write notes and they don't really give you any feedback, I don't know that it helps that much. Didn't really help me, but this one question. And I remember thinking, really, Lord? Because I kind of have a list and I know you know my list. But the next thing I heard him say is it true?
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is really deep. So I went into corporate training right after that, and I was really blessed to be somewhere where they just gave me free creative reign to create any kind of training I wanted. And I went around the company and met with all the department heads and said, what do you need? And everybody was saying, we need to know how to communicate. We need to know how to lead. We need soft skills, personal development. And I said, okay, easy enough. So I created trainings on personal development, and I thought, I'm going to use those 2 questions because I want to play with it and see what happens in the corporate world. So I had this room full of about 20 people, men, women, all different ages, all different departments within this very large company. And I said, that thing that you've carried in your life, whether it was the coach that said you're not good enough, you won't make the cut. It's the guy that didn't ask you to prom that said, I would never be seen at prom with you. You're this, you're that. Or it's the spouse that walked away. I said, hold on to that thought. I did the whole training. And then at the end, I said, so that thing that you've been believing about yourself your whole life, what if you weren't that? Who would you be? And a girl in the front row blurted out free. And I thought, okay, we are on to something here. So the next week I did the same training again, mixed room, all different departments, ages, guys, girls. 2 people started crying. And all I could think of is, I'm going to get fired. You can't make people cry when they go into training. But the guy came up to me after and he goes, I have not spoken to my family in 10 years and I'm going to call them now. And
Aww.
He did it. I know, right? Like as a mom, I was thinking he's not that much older than my oldest daughter. And I was like, oh my gosh, what has happened there? And then the other girl, she was crying so hard she had to leave the room. And I was able to talk to her later and just find out that this was her first real job. She was in her early 20s and, it's corporate America. She had done like the fast food type of thing. But she had a mother that just berated her and told her all the time that she was such a loser and she'd never make it. So asking those questions really hit such a tender place for her. And
Right.
I knew right then, I was like, this is a God message. And whether you believe in God, whether you're Catholic or you're Muslim or you're a Christian, like whatever it is you believe, I'm a Christian, but I believe this is a word from God to the people of what are you believing about yourself? And is it true?
Exactly.
It
'Cause
will
it doesn't
change
matter.
your life,
Yeah.
right?
It doesn't matter who you believe in.
Yeah, it will absolutely change your life and set you free if you start believing the truth about yourself.
Right. So you talk about there's steps that one can take to identify what they're believing about themselves that isn't true so they can feel more confident. Can you share some of that with the audience?
Mm-hmm. Well, the really high level of the 3 steps that are in the book, like the first step is realizing that you have the power to choose. So people that are stuck in bad relationships, bad jobs, bosses, whatever it is, you have the power to choose to make a change. People stay stuck. I'm a victim. He did this, she did that. It's like, okay, but what are you choosing? What are you choosing to believe about yourself, about this situation? I mean, unless you're a minor or you're in the military and you're stationed where you don't want to live, you have a lot of freedom to choose where you're going to live, where you're going to work, who you're going to be in a relationship with. So it's really, first of all, you need to harness the fact that the power of choice is your superhuman power. That is your God-given power right there. You get to choose everything from what sandwich you're going to eat to your faith journey. So that's step number one. But second, you really need to start listening to the voices in your head and get clear on what these voices are saying. And I know that sounds weird to some people, but you have a track playing in your head. It's like the old 8-track tapes for my old school listeners that just plays all the time. It says, oh, why did you say that? You're so stupid. Oh, they don't like you. Why are you wearing that? You look ridiculous. If those are the voices in your head, write them down and decide, is this true? Is this really true? Not what you think is true, not what might be kind of true. Like, really, is it true? And if you don't know, because some people have been so beaten down that they don't even know if they can believe that the sky is blue, then you need to get with a really good coach or counselor that will help you uncover what is truly true. So that's the second step. And then the third step is really easy. It's, okay, so if you're not that, then who would you be? Because let's talk about possibility of what you could possibly accomplish and be in your life. This is like the easiest hard work you'll ever do in your life.
Exactly.
I know the steps are so simple, but when you sit down and do them, it's hard.
Well, because people don't want to do the work that it takes to create that lasting change.
Right. They'd rather take a pill. Because half the people out here that have depression are depressed because of what they're believing about themselves. And I say that as a person that I was diagnosed with depression, and I talk about it in my book. I was ashamed. I was absolutely ashamed because people judge you if you're depressed. I mean, a lot of this had been going on for years. It's not like here we are in 2021 where there's so much social awareness around emotional well-being. Like, it's not so taboo like it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. In 1985, when I married my daughter's father, right after we got married, he told me he'd been diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic as a child. I was like, what does that even mean? And nobody was getting help in the 80s.
Right. That's right. Wow. Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So tell me today, do you, because I know for me, like I have a form of PTSD and it still surfaces because it's not something that just goes away. Right. So there are times that it still comes up, and then I know what I have to do to take care of it, and calm myself back down. Do you have any remnants from that? Like, are there things that still surface that you have to work on? Just because I want people to understand that, it's not just like a snap and we're fixed kind of thing.
Yeah. I was diagnosed with PTSD about, 8 years ago. I think it was about 8 years ago. And I'm not so sure that was really an accurate diagnosis, because later I was certified in critical incident stress debriefing. And we went so deep on handling PTSD and how to debrief in the first 72 hours to mitigate those symptoms. I don't have triggers. I know what one trigger was several years ago, and I've never been in that particular scenario again. So that could be why. That could be why I haven't been triggered, is just because that was kind of an isolated type of situation. But I don't have flashbacks. I don't have nightmares. I think that I'm very, very blessed that I have had truly a miraculous healing from all the things.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And I'm so happy to hear that. So happy to hear that.
Oh, thank you.
So you have another book. Tell us about that. That's getting ready to come out. When will it be released?
Well, we're looking at early 2022. I'm hoping for January, but I'm thinking it might end up being February. The book is called To Confidence, Creating Confidence and Self-Worth in a Broken World. And we will be addressing a lot of similar scenarios that are in my first book. don't think it's going to be so much workbook style, although there will be a little bit of that, but also a segment in there for leadership. Because leadership has a whole different situation when you say to a CEO, what do you believe about yourself? They fall into either imposter syndrome or you can't tell them anything because I think they've got it all figured out. So we'll be dealing with some leadership blind spots, which I'm excited about.
Nice. So let's talk about this imposter syndrome.
Yeah. So this is really interesting. I thought when I was in the corporate world and I started training on imposter syndrome, I had some kind of a perception that it wasn't as widespread as it is. And as I've worked with more women, even women in other countries, completely different socioeconomic, everything is different when you're living in another country, right? From the United States.
Right.
And started hearing about the same things and interviewing a lot of women in business. Everybody is worried about comparison and am I good enough? And if they only knew. So those are the things that really fall into that imposter syndrome. And I mean, newsflash for everybody, y'all are okay. You're okay. This is normal to think this way. I mean, because you think that way doesn't mean there's something wrong with you or any of that, because everybody else is thinking it. But let's get you to stop thinking that way. Let's get you to start thinking that you're going to figure this out, whatever it is that you're struggling with. And you know what? For those people that think, oh, if they only knew about ... they wouldn't love me, they wouldn't be my friend, they would fire me, they wouldn't have me lead a team. There is a place where you can have a certain level of leadership. What's the word that I want to use? Where you're allowing your team to see that you're a human being. Like you don't want to be completely vulnerable and, spill all your guts to your team. But when you can be human with your team and start sharing some of those lessons from the road, people rise up. They want a leader that they can identify with. And they're not going to look at you as less than. They're going to look at you as somebody that they can truly trust and learn from. And that's really, really important. And for those of you that aren't leading a team and you think, oh, if they only knew, like maybe you're dating. This is a good one. You're dating and you don't want this new guy that you think you're going to marry to know that maybe you were a victim of abuse. Most of the time when you tell these type of personal secrets, people rally around you. It's rare, although it does happen, that people will blame you of like, well, what did you do that for? And, in fact, to that point, Cy Wakeman is an amazing speaker and influencer. And she told a story on my show talking about going out and having drinks. And, you think you're going to get a hangover. Nobody goes out and has a drink and thinks that you're going to be assaulted or robbed or wake up in a garage, right?
Right.
I mean, that's just... So for people that would shame you and go, well, why did you put yourself in that situation? You didn't know better. Whether you're 16 or you're 25 or you're 32, it's the same thing. You don't think that people are just out to victimize you. We have a tendency to just kind of believe the good in people.
Absolutely.
And then things happen. So if you tell your stories, 9 times out of 10, people are going to rally around you and be so grateful that you shared that. And they're going to support you. So don't be afraid. Just be careful of who you share with.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be somebody that you feel safe talking to. And
yes.
And you also, by sharing those stories, you will learn maybe who your true friends are.
That's true. That's definitely true. That would be a little bit scary. It's hard to lose a friendship.
Yeah. Well, but if people aren't supporting you,
then they're not really
your friends.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. So Sharon, this has been such a great conversation, and I'm just so happy that you came on and were so vulnerable and shared all of this.
Oh, thank you, Sandee. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. So is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
There is. Okay, audience. Listen up, because this is the Aunt Sharon quote. Believing a lie is just as powerful as believing the truth. Really think about that. Believing a lie is just as powerful as believing the truth. Go and listen to what you're believing and discern if it's true or if it's not.
I love it. I love it. Sharon, thank you so much. And why don't you share your website as well?
Oh,
so people
yes.
can check you out.
Come on over to SharonHughes.net, and I've got some free guides to get you started on your confidence and your self-worth journey, and also some trainings that are a small investment just to get you that support, get you over the hump, get some truth poured into your heart, your soul, your mind of that you are good enough and you really do matter.
Oh, Sharon, thank you so much. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. There was so much value in that interview, and I hope that you were able to take one thing and apply it to your life right now, especially when she says, "What do you believe about yourself?" So I hope you take a minute and think about that and are able to make some sort of shift in your life. You can learn more about me at sandeescarlotta.com. My book, Happiness Solved, Climbing 100 Steps, is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And as always, I hope that you and your family stay safe and healthy, and that your life is filled with peace, joy, and an abundance of happiness. Take care, everyone.